We're going to talk to Andre Walker, our friend from London. He is a lobby correspondent to Parliament for The Observer. We'll be talking about the recent terror attack in Westminster. Gene Barratelli, Behind Enemy Lines. We'll be back right after these brief words. Hey folks, I just want to let you know about a great opportunity for listeners of Behind Enemy Lines Radio. If you go to our website, www.behindenemylinesradio.us, and click on the SaneBox ad on the right side of the page, you will get a great opportunity for a discounted offer to join SaneBox. SaneBox filters out all the unimportant email from your inbox so that you can really focus on what matters. If you're anything like me, folks, you get hundreds of pieces of email a day, not many of which is important. SaneBox's smart filter will get everything you need to fly through your inbox and finally make email work for you. It gets rid of spam emails, it deprioritizes emails that aren't as important to you, and it helps you unsubscribe from mailing lists and individual senders with ease. So again, go to www.behindenemylinesradio.us and you click on the SaneBox ad and you'll be given an exclusive offer you won't find anywhere else. The show will be right back. But first, a word from Al Sharpton.
But resist we must. They're all jitty about a shutdown. The tortoise in the race, then co-author of Hubris. U2 lead singer Bono, Fran Drescher, Sigourney Weaver, suspect Jahar Tsarnaev, Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh. The show Rush Lombard hosts Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. Is Mike Muckery yesterday, Antonin Scalia. Kim Kardashian and the Republican candidates, both Cairo and Benghazi, we rank behind Lavita. First stop, Kazakhstan to college students in Beijing. He's getting lunch at Chipotle in Iowa. Bain is appropriate. The GOP's tax day giveaway to millionaires. Why was traffic problems email sent? The Environmental Projection Agency. And what sequestration has done.
But wait, there's more.
We all know I've had my share of prompter issues. And here's the president meeting with a colloquy. Republicans, Grinches, launching fistful of coal. Copies of the new issue of Charlie Hebdo. He also goes by the name Michael Zahabiba. 26-year-old Nina. Phone. Ray Romano. Honor David Letterman. He died of accidental asphyxia. Al-Qaeda in Yemen. The start of school has been postponed several times. Massive manhood is underway. Who spoke at a white supremacist convention. You look at the hand you dealt with. There are not 60 Republicans after a historic. When you hear of ISIS now waterboating all over the map on immigration, did the New England Patriots cheat to get into the big game? NFL analyst and Hall of Fame player Troy Aikens, the writer slamming President Obama for talking with YouTube celebrities. What's the latest tonight in Iowa?
Well, in Ottawa.
And they gave this guy a TV show? Let's get back to our show. Gene Barratelli, back Behind Enemy Lines. Joining me on the line right now, our good friend, Behind Enemy Lines contributor, and lobby correspondent for The Observer in Parliament, and a gentleman who knows firsthand what it was like in the past week at this horrific attack in Westminster, who can explain a lot to us about it. Our good friend Andre Walker. What's up, pal? How you doing?
Well, I think we're doing well. Things have pretty much returned to normal in Westminster this week, but as you know, it's been a little bit difficult. It's been a difficult period for us, not least because Parliament was successfully invaded. Always remember that the terrorists obviously mounted the curb in Westminster Bridge, but also made it 20 metres within the parliamentary estate, and I imagine that's something we need to be concerned about. But one thing that I think American listeners, and particularly your listeners, need to be concerned about is that, you know, PC Keith Palmer died for the cause protecting Parliament, but also this was a guy who was unarmed. And we're hearing just now that the reason why the terrorist was shot was because Michael Fallon, the Defence Secretary's bodyguards, happened to be on the scene. Big concerns in London and Westminster about the fact that it was bodyguards who are not located in New Palace Yard, the Palace of Westminster, normally, who actually took him out.
Well, let me ask you this, Andre, as we're getting right into it. How is it determined who carries firearms that would be a police guard and who doesn't?
So essentially, just to be slightly technical, because we've got a couple of minutes to chat about this, the Palace of Westminster is guarded by essentially three services. If you think back to Charles I, it is illegal for officers of the Crown, that includes police, to enter the Parliament's chambers. And so there are some doorkeepers. Those are the guys in the tails that you see knocking about. But the principal security of the Palace of Westminster is done by Metropolitan Police Division P, which is Parliamentary Guards, and D Division, which is Diplomatic Protection. Now, the Diplomatic Protection, the D Division, are all armed, because what they will be is, they will be the outer ring, if you like, at the American Embassy and places like that in London. But the P Division are unarmed. And so essentially the problem that we've got is that some people are armed and some people are unarmed. Now, I think the prevailing theory, Gene, is this, that the reason why at carriage gates, by the way, I should say to your listeners, that carriage gates are the gates where many people get photos with police officers in front of Big Ben. Now, I don't know whether you've been there yourself, but a lot of your listeners will have been and will know the gate that I'm talking about. But the theory is that the reason why they were unarmed was because they didn't want to have machine guns ruining the photo, bluntly.
Seriously, that's the reason.
Well, I think that's quite a shocking thought, but I think it's true. I mean, my article in The Observer said that there are other gates in Westminster, clearly for security reasons. I won't tell you the exact location of them, but there are other gates that are guarded by just one unarmed police officer. Now, they can call for backup, but when I suggested that the problem was that the backup wasn't quick enough, or the backup should have not been a backup, it should have been a front up, if you see what I mean, that has been significantly supported by the suggestion that the bodyguards were the people that had to kill the terrorist. Now,
Andre, were you there at Parliament that day when this happened at all, either before or after?
I was there afterwards. Funnily enough, I went for a meeting at Chelsea Football Club, which is about sort of 10 or 15 minutes on the tube down the road. So I missed most of it. But I know that people were significantly shaken. There was a security operation that went into fruition. One of the things I asked, I remember when I worked as a House of Commons staffer, I remember the fire alarm went off in our building once, and I refused to leave the building. And when the fire officer came round, I said to him, look, the reason I've refused to respond to the alarm is because if this were a terrorist incident, would I want to leave the building? And he said, look, there is a separate system for a terrorist attack. And so an announcement was made over the intercom, the public address system, which told people what to do. The exact details of that clearly we're not going to shout about, but arrangements were made, and there were actually, to be fair, a large number of armed both soldiers and police available. But I repeat the comment, and certainly for anybody who's interested in republicanism, who supports the National Rifle Association, would be interested to say that, we left PC Keith Palmer, and essentially he had to fight with a stick against a guy with two knives. And at Carriage Gate, the Palace of Westminster, if you were to do that, if you were to suggest at the Capitol building in Washington that we were going to defend it with guys with sticks, they would think you were completely mad. And I think that they would be right.
Right, and then this was someone that was actually trained at both in the military and in the police force in artillery and weaponry, right?
Yeah, that's right. So PC Keith Palmer used to be called Gunner Keith Palmer. So it's not unusual, just to explain, that the parliamentary P Division, as I said, the parliamentary guards of the Metropolitan Police, it's not unusual for them to be retired soldiers, because obviously you get to a certain age, and obviously you can't do Afghanistan and Iraq, but what you can do is lighter duties in the Palace of Westminster. So a lot of them are former soldiers, and so PC Keith Palmer didn't have a gun, though the suggestion is, and the suggestion I have to say has been made by me, but I think it's a reasonable one, that he could have handled a firearm. He was in the Royal Artillery, which is, of course, the people who are almost elite when it comes to big kit, weaponry, guns, cannons in the old days and big mortar launchers today. So I suspect the reason that he wasn't armed was purely a piece of sensitivity by the British state.
Now, a lot of people on this side of the pond have taken comments by the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, as being almost defeatist in talking about terrorist attacks and for this almost being the new normal and that people should start accepting that. Is that what you're hearing on that end, or is it just conservatives picking up on what they want to hear on this side of the pond?
Well, I think what we want to hear is Sadiq Khan say this is absolutely disgusting and we will fight back with the power that we have. I mean, if you think back to 9/11, the response of the American state was to say, look, this is an absolute outrage and we'll not allow it to happen. Now, of course, what happened in London this week, or last week rather, what happened was nowhere near the scale of 9/11. But, the response should not be that this is what we ought to be used to, this is what we ought to accept. What the Americans said after 9/11 was, no, absolutely not. We will not allow this to take place, and we will make it our absolute priority, more than anything else, to take down the people responsible and to root them out and, put them on trial if they can be put on trial, or kill them. Either way, they're not going to do it again. And Sadiq Khan is just his typical self. And, there's big questions about his ability to oppose radical Islam. I don't think that he's a terrorist sympathizer in any sense, but he's just someone who is part of that establishment that just says, we have to accept this. Well, I just say what Donald Trump says. You don't have to import these people to the country. If somebody supports radical jihad, leave them to die in Syria. I'm comfortable with that, and I think most British people would be comfortable with that as well.
Oh, I don't understand why people wouldn't be comfortable with that. I don't think there's a saying in even my law office: "Don't let your problems become my problems." When talking just pushing paper, I can't imagine a country wanting to take on the problems of an entire region and having them spill over into the nation. But it seems like the EU has done that, and you're living with a problem that I guess the country recognized too late with the Brexit vote. But so has the sentiment of the country, do you feel it's going to change after this? Because after 9/11, if you want to compare, there was a very, very strong movement towards, security and, homeland security and things like that. A whole department was created for it. Do you see that sort of movement there, or are people kind of in that general malaise still of, well, this is what we have to accept if we want to be a global citizen?
Yeah, well, whether you like it or not, it's kind of easier for us in Britain than it is for continental Europe. Firstly, our only land border is with the Republic of Ireland, and the Republic of Ireland very kindly has the same level of security in its ports and airports as we do in the UK. Therefore, it's very, very hard to come to the UK if you don't have the proper credentials. You can't just creep across the border, perhaps like happens to the US, and certainly what happens in continental Europe. So our security is pretty good. Also, the other thing about our security is that Britain has been a terrorist target for forever, if you like. I mean, imagine Queen Victoria suffered, 7 very, very significant assassination attempts. One of them, somebody put a gun in their face, but it didn't fire. And so our security services are some of the best in the world. They have the best sort of geography, the easiest geography to deal with. So I think what we want to do, and what Brexit's all about, is to say, look, if we can control our own affairs, if we can control our own border, if we can decide who can come in and who can't come in, then actually our security services are perfectly capable of dealing with this. Now, the other thing that I know some of your listeners won't agree with is that, there is an advantage with the fact we're not a gun-owning society. What I mean by that is that we are a country that has no desire to own guns, because restrictions on weaponry existed before guns were cheap enough for normal people to buy. Therefore, there is no desire to have a Second Amendment in the United Kingdom. So the only debate in the UK will be about, what level of armaments are given to the police and the security services. So I think it is very easy for us, and equally, I'll say something else. The Muslim immigration that principally we get is from former Commonwealth countries. Pakistan and Bangladesh. And actually, these guys are pretty much on side. They fought 2 world wars with us, and so we don't generally have a problem. But if the EU opens the borders, which Germany's done, by the way, I should just explain something to your listeners. What the Germans consistently say to the British